Welcome back. Stranded in Pittsburgh. It's Nick, it's Nate, it's Ethan, it's Golden Bachelor finale night. But guess what, Gary? We ain't afraid of you. Head to head, we're going to drop right when you're leaving that fantasy suite. We're going to give you a rose as your parting gift because the ratings going down. Just like Hopwood Hall. Rest in peace, Army Legendary Building. Or a room, I should say. Anyway, very excited to be back, not only because the Steelers played competent offense against the Bengals, but they should have a pretty good game this weekend. Got a lot of things to be excited about right now. We're going to talk about the Steelers, as you guessed, some of their off-field drama, or even on-field drama, if you will. Talk about what's going on with the Pens, and by we, I mean Nate's going to tell us what's going on with the Pens. I'm talking about the Pirates because everyone else is throwing their money around. Bob Nutting, he's just sitting there. He's making you hope that Mark Cuban selling all of these assets is getting ready for that Pirates purchase, that PP, if you will. But I wouldn't be so hopeful. Anyway, guys, how are we doing tonight?
Not too bad. Trying to fit this in before you have to get dragged over to watch The Golden Bachelor.
I am very invested. Reality TV is my new, it's like nicotine to me now, I guess. It's just something I need. I have a need for it. I can go like 2 days without it, but I need that fake manufactured drama.
Well,
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Sorry, Ethan.
No, yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Go ahead,
Nate. Go ahead, Nate. Yeah.
Speaking of television that you're in love with, how about CM Punk coming back? What was that like for you, Nick?
That was pretty cool. Pretty cool. There was we were watching something and I said, the main event's probably started by now. And so I have a subscription to Peacock, proud former NBC affiliate employee. Didn't get any discounts on it, but I still have the subscription. What's $5 to a player like me? You know, actually, it's quite the investment. But anyway, we're watching it, and I had like the volume on very low, so I could like hear a it sounded like someone was muttering stuff, like very like Charlie Brown parent-esque, just like that was kind of the sounds I could hear. And they ended it with like this big fade out, zoom out shot. You see like the whole arena, which you usually don't see the camera side. They zoomed way out. They had like the watermark that they put up before they go out. And then you see a red light flash up on the little lights around the electronic video board that hangs over the middle of the arena. And I was like, huh? And then I couldn't hear what was happening. And all the fans jump up. And I was like, wait. And then CM Punk showed up on the video board. And I started like shaking. And it was pretty cool. 12-year-old me was so excited. 25-year-old me, man, I sound anxious. I was still pretty excited. I'm not going to be tuning in every week, but I'll be following along, watching when I can, and just having a good time, rolling with it. I'm a big nostalgia act guy this year. This year's been a big year of me growing as a adult and like saying, okay, college is in the past. All of that, crazy young, wild and free young man events that I did, those are in the past. You got to grow up. So anytime I can like dip back into those old waters of my youth, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're also going to talk about the Steelers right now because you've made it this far and you should be rewarded by hearing what you actually came here for. Steelers beat the daunting and intimidating Jake Browning, multi-record holder at Washington University. Go Huskies. But yeah, a very good game from the Steelers. It wasn't without controversy and missed opportunities. You look at the box score at the end of the game, you say, oh, great, 400-something yards, but they only scored 16 points. To that, I say Diontae dropped a ball that should have definitely been a touchdown. If they challenged it, they might have even got that overturned, and then Jalen Warren fumbled. There are some opportunities there for more points. I'm not going to get greedy, though. This looked like a coherent offense. I actually started believing they were going to get first downs and not go 3 and out. I was buying in very early, and they left us wanting more, I think. They left us wanting to see more of what they could do, and their schedule, as we've talked about, is pretty favorable. So I think it's exactly what we needed to see from this new or makeshift regime, whatever you want to call it. And Ken even made some pretty ballsy throws, and none of them got picked off. So what did you guys make of this?
Yeah, I think what you saw was a more confident offense, an offense that felt like they wanted to move forward and move on. Obviously, they wanted to move on from Matt Canada, but this offense, they were just itching to have this type of game that they had Sunday afternoon. You had the Najee Harris incident last week in Cleveland where he was talking about what needed to change, and he's tired of all of everything, what was going on. You got to see that Sunday afternoon, and I think that's where you really saw this offense blossom. Obviously, the run game is still very, very strong, and they've had a lot of success over the past couple of weeks. That continued, but also the play out of Kenny Pickett, the throws that you saw him made, even on the first play of the game. Even on the first play of the game, he was making a throw right over the middle, down the middle of the field, more than just a little check down. You saw that out of Kenny Pickett, and that's what you want to see. You want to see this team taking risks. No wonder why Kenny hasn't thrown an interception however many weeks, because he hasn't taken a risk. You didn't see that with Matt Canada. And will I say this offense is completely fixed? No, there's still a lot of glaring holes and a lot of things that need to be fixed on the offensive side of the ball. But I think as a whole, and what you have seen in the schedule that the Steelers have moving forward, you have room to improve, room to grow, to hopefully improve this offensive side of the ball, which has lacked throughout this entire season. You have some time to grow this offense against some teams that you should be able to beat, even with a subpar offense. You have time to improve steadily over the course of these next couple of weeks to when you're getting towards week 15, week 16, week 17, and week 18, you're ready to go full force. And if you're the Steelers, you want to make that playoff push, and you'll have that shot if you're able to continue to do the things that you're able to do over this past week, able to get over that 400-yard barrier. Yes, it was only 16 points, but it got the job done, and this offense looked a lot more confident and we're able to move the ball a lot more fluidly than in weeks past.
Yeah, and then, as you mentioned that first play, I mean, in back-to-back weeks, we sort of saw foreshadowing of what the offense would be on the very first play. We see the Pickett almost, goes down on a safety in Cleveland, and now the first play over the middle of the pat for 24 yards just sort of summed up what you would see in the game, and the offense looked like they can move the ball a lot better. And, is it because Canada wasn't there, or is it maybe that finally this offense is like, all right, let's turn to the next gear. We got a chip on our shoulder, Kenny as well. I mean, now that Canada's gone, all the blame's going to him. We talked about this last week, and so maybe he knew that and took that, and that lit a fire under him. And they finally started moving the ball. Now the points, a lot left to be desired there, and I think that's the next step for this offense. And the Cardinals are a very good opportunity to do that, and I know we'll talk about them in a second. But Ethan, as you mentioned, I mean, some more gutsy throws, getting in the middle to Pat Freiermuth, but also like to see some other players getting involved over the middle. I mean, Pat's not the only guy that can get a target across the middle. He was the only guy with 5 targets in between the hash marks. Get Pickens on a crossing route, get Diontae Johnson on a crossing route. Find a way to get Calvin Austin involved too. We haven't seen him too much over the last couple of weeks, but the other thing is, the run game has supported now what could potentially set up a really good passing game if Pickett and the passing game can continue and grow on this, as Ethan has mentioned. But another really, really strong run game for Najee Harris, especially maybe a holding on that touchdown call, but we don't have to talk about that. And Jaylen Warren also, providing what he could. But yeah, I mean, I think some promising signs. Now it's time for the Steelers to take the next step, especially for Kenny Pickett if he wants to, not be the one getting his name chanted to bench inside Acrisure Stadium.
There's a song that Nate used to sing to me when I was first done with college and moving into my first big boy apartment. And he'd call me and say, "Taking care of business every day." That song, that's what the Steelers did. They just took care of business against the Bengals. Some parts were pretty, some weren't, including Diontae Johnson not diving on the fumble that was right next to him and then going on Twitter and going, "Great team win. Let's go, guy." Like, it was just very cartoony, his response on social media. And then the drop in the end zone, if we want to continue to call it a drop or whatever. My boy Gene Steratorn, the only person I bought a cameo of, by the way, for my fantasy football league. We needed some NFL-related guy, and he was one of the cheapest. So shout out to Gene. Gene said that if Pittsburgh challenged it, it wouldn't have been a drop because he took 3 steps. So I'm not going to call that a drop anymore because what Gene says, I go by. That's my Bible, one of my Bibles. But yeah, some controversy with Diontae. It seems like there's always something going on with him, but he handled it pretty well here. Sounds like he's kind of bought in, and that's kind of been the way a lot of the offense has been talking. I believe Faulkner said earlier today, maybe even, guys are buying in, they're getting ready. So is this something you think is going to get overlooked? How much does it concern you, this whole Diontae Johnson thing that we've kind of seen play out over the last 4 or 5 days?
I think when you see the Diontae drama going on, you kind of see it happening with this whole wide receiver room as a whole. You saw it happen with George Pickens a couple weeks ago. Obviously, you saw it happen with Claypool, with AB, with Juju. You see all of this wide receiver drama. The Steelers cannot seem to get rid of this wide receiver drama. Everything that goes around this wide receiver room, there's always some sort of problem within this room that the Steelers cannot seem to get rid of. Tomlin did call out Diontae this week, though. He didn't do anything about it, but he just called him out and mentioned it in his press conference, which if you guys want to chime in, I don't think I've seen Tomlin call out any one of his players in the past several years.
Not that I can think of. On the spot, I can't think of that, no.
Yeah, right. So he has never called out anyone. And Diontae's, obviously, he's had his struggles in the past, but he is still a very valuable asset to this team.
He kind of called out Pickett like 2 weeks ago. That wasn't like a throw under the bus, you need to do better. It's just like, hey, step it up a bit. So I don't know if we want to classify that as calling him out, but that was probably the most recent one, just a couple weeks ago.
Right. Yeah. But other than that, you haven't seen him actually go at a guy and specifically call him out. And you saw that this week. He didn't do anything about it. He didn't bench him. He didn't say he's going to bench him. Obviously, he did it with Chooks a couple weeks ago, saying that they were going to go in another direction. But other than that, you haven't seen Tomlin really make that sort of move that I think a lot of people in Pittsburgh have really wanted to have him hold guys accountable over the course of his career, which he hasn't not done. But you saw that this week. So does this worry me? Yes, it does a little bit because Diontae is a crucial part. And if his headspace is not there, it could pay detriment to the Steelers offense. But right now, if you can keep him somehow engaged with this offense and get him over this rut that he's in and this mindset that he's in, I think the Steelers offense, if they continue to improve and continue to show the signs of growth that they've shown over this past week and continue pushing forward, I think you're going to see Diontae kind of blossom as this season comes to an end.
So today I spent some time at my uncle's house helping him out, doing some yard work, and we were talking about this whole incident with Diontae Johnson. Sorry, I didn't know if you guys were probably like, what the hell is Nate talking about going in a random direction?
I thought you saw Diontae drive by and you stopped him at the 4-way nearby and asked him to roll down the window.
Yeah, I had a little stern talking with him, but we were talking about it, and what's the first thing that Diontae Johnson is as a professional? He's a football player. He should be out there working as a team. He's not a wide receiver. He's a football player. He should be going out there, and one of the oldest sayings or whatever in sports, you play to the whistle. And he obviously didn't. And the ball's right there. Even when he finally realizes that, hey, the ball's right here next to me, he doesn't even try to get back. You guys have probably seen the clip of Julio Jones hustling his ass off, running back after an interception going all the way back and when he was with the Falcons. I mean, that guy hustled to get back and make a tackle, a touchdown saving tackle. Why don't you see that at all from the Steelers wide receiving core? I feel like not many players would do that. Even Pickens or anybody else. I mean, very rarely I feel like you could say, all right, that guy, Claypool, Juju, none of those guys I feel like would make, a game-saving play like Julio Jones did. But I think the Steelers handled this pretty well. I think Tomlin handled it pretty well. He let Diontae speak to the team and address the whole issue. But I think right now, I think the Steelers are in a really good spot. I mean, there's been a lot of, a dark cloud over them all year with, the record they've had and them not putting up more than 400 yards and being outgained just about every game. But I think with Canada gone and the performance that they were able to put together in Cincinnati, I think this offense might be starting to feel it. And if they can start clicking and every guy can start saying, all right, we're going to buy in now. I mean, we're 7-4, we're in a playoff spot, but let's actually do something with this. Let's not just be a team that's going to go in and get cakewalked in the first round. Let's be a team that's going to be going to have a strong offense moving forward, climb the rankings as the season goes in terms of passing yards, running. I mean, obviously the rush game has been there the last couple of weeks. So I think, this whole situation, if they can put it behind them, and I think if Pickens and Diontae can sort of buy in and lock in, I think this offense can be really potent, moving forward, especially if they can finally break through throwing the ball and scoring a passing touchdown.
Yeah,
and it's not even that. It's the confidence. It's the confidence in this group that this team has lacked, that this offense has lacked over the course of the season, and even in seasons past, they haven't had a game where they've gained over 400 yards in 56 games. It's the confidence that's in this group that I think will really help propel them forward.
And that's been frustrating for a lot of those guys. Sorry, Nick. That's been frustrating, and that's why Pickens 2 weeks ago. That's why Pickens, 3 weeks ago, was upset. Harris 2 weeks ago or after Cleveland, and now Diontae. I mean, maybe not being totally dialed in, but I think, Ethan, to touch on that, I mean, that confidence has really got to be high right now for everyone.
Oh, no, I can talk. Thanks. But yeah, I feel like that's all you need. One game. I think we've touched on it a lot this year. The skill players on this offense are really good, or at least have the potential to be really good. And I think they've just needed a scheme or a game plan that kind of complements that. And regardless of what Kenny Pickett's shortcomings are, if he can find a way to get these guys the ball, good things are going to happen. And Nate must have had a magic 8-ball, because he was talking about how important Pat Freiermuth was going to be to this offense once he got back. And we just saw what he's capable of doing this game. When he was out, and granted, it's probably a lot to do with Canada, but we saw what they were doing without Freiermuth. There was no really middle of the field threat, which we've talked about extensively, so I'll kind of rush through it. The extent of their tight end usage was Connor Hayward doing stupid little dinky routes out to the side and getting like 4 or 5 yards on 3rd and 25s. So, I mean, to see them have a viable threat at tight end is great. And to touch on something else Nate said, and I'd really like to see this against this lackluster 2-10 Cardinals team. No offense to any of them. They're tanking. They're taking a pause for the cause. I'd like to see George Pickens and Calvin Austin get on some of these quick little routes here, some quick slants, some zigs, some maybe quick in routes, whatever you have to do across the middle of the field to space things out a bit more. All these guys are obviously want 100-plus yard receiving games. That's not possible. But, I mean, you can get all of these guys involved to some extent, more so than what we've seen, which has basically been finding Diontae and last game dumping it off to Freiermuth, or throwing these stupid little screens that hopefully we're going to start seeing get eradicated from the game plan unless it makes sense. But, yeah, I mean, you really want to open up this field more now. Kenny maybe has some confidence going over the middle of the field. Get some other guys involved in it here. Let's start building that confidence. Combined confidence and offense there. That's a fun word. Let's start building the confidence now. I mean, it seems like everyone's starting to go, yeah, we can do this. And so let's just keep the ball rolling. I don't see why it should stop. But Steelers will play the Cardinals this weekend. Cardinals sit at 2-10. Should be a pretty winnable game. They're in Acrisure. I almost feel comfortable saying that now. But guys, Patrick Peterson, talking about Kyler Murray, we've seen this kind of bite him in the ass before, but saying once you get him out of the pocket, or he's afraid to be in the pocket, basically, I'm paraphrasing. Hopefully there's no curse from him saying erroneous things like that, but what do you guys make of this game? What do we see happening here, aside from a win? Because I don't think being satisfied with the dinky little Steeler 19-9 or 10-6 win is going to be satisfying here. What more do you guys need to see from this team going into this game and coming out of this game, I should say?
I think just stacking together the offensive performance that they had against Cincinnati, I think that's one of the major things that you need to look at right now with the Steelers. The defense, they've made some timely plays. They've made those splash plays late in games to really keep this offense in it. But you really need to see against a very winnable opponent, since he might have had Jake Browning start, but they still had a lot of weapons. As far as Arizona goes, they don't have that kind of weapons that Cincy has, that other teams that the Steelers have played over the course of the season. The Steelers need to stack together another good offensive performance. Like Nick said, get some other guys involved. Get guys involved that we haven't really seen a lot this year. Calvin Austin, George Pickens making some plays. You need to see a cohesive offensive effort from the Steelers team. That's what I want to see. I want to see a team that can run the ball and have success running the ball, but also have success airing the ball out down the field and really have this full 60 minutes of complete offense from this team. And then moving forward, just continue to build on that. And I think if you get that out of the Steelers team Sunday, you're going to have success in this game and even more moving forward.
Yeah, I think to find some complementary football is the biggest thing for the Steelers right now. I mean, and they finally found it a little bit, but getting to the end zone through the air, I think, is important. But I think, the Steelers continuing to pave their way on the ground has been huge for them. And the Cardinals are coming off a game where they let up 450 yards to the Rams. So it can be done. The Steelers can put up some yardage, and it's about putting up points for the Steelers offense. And I don't know if that's going to happen too much this game in terms of, blowing up the scoreboard compared to what they've done so far. But I think, maybe incorporating some more play action. How about like some trickery, maybe a flea flicker or something? They're going to be biting on that run a lot, but especially if you put in that jumbo set, because there's a statistic out there that when Darnell Washington's in the game, it's like 95% run. So why not throw him in? So the Cardinals are going to bite probably on the run. Do a little flea flicker or something. I don't know, just something unique. And how about Mike Sullivan and Faulkner putting a little bit of their own stamp on this offense? So I think if the Steelers, can try to open up the playbook a little bit more and build on what we saw from last week.
Yeah, is Minka playing? I know he was out on the practice field the other day. Have they officially said he'll be out there this week?
He's still questionable.
I think if
anything.
You get him out there and reacclimated with everything, that would be great, because the secondary is very worrisome to me still. But that being said, we saw TJ Watt have a pretty good game against the Bengals, whose offensive line was pretty much at full strength. That came after a Browns game where it was like, I think he had one sack, but it really didn't feel like he made a big impact on the game. So, you kind of want to see that defense stay just in a fluid state where everything's kind of clicking. And they have so many guys just getting picked from practice squads and free agency and kind of thrown into the mix here. Getting a face like Minka back, I think, could go a long way in getting some identity back beyond the defensive line. Steelers had some schedule shifts today as well. Their Colts game will now be on Saturday, which means, I believe, towards the end of the year, they go Thursday, Saturday, Saturday, which is kind of fun, because that means my Sunday won't be spent going like this and just rocking back and forth and stressing out about Steeler football. But guys, any final thoughts on the Steelers here before we move on to the Nate's Penguins round table? No.
I'll give.
Yes.
We didn't give our prediction. We didn't give our predictions.
We didn't give a prediction.
So,
that's why Nate's here. Ethan, go ahead.
So the lines that we'll go. Ethan first. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Nathan. Go ahead.
I just blatantly disrespected Nate. I apologize.
Everything's like really behind. So like I think we're just off sync a little bit. So like as soon as I start talking, like someone else is automatically already talking. But anyways, the line's at 5.5 in favor of the Steelers. I'm not going with the Steelers to cover. I just don't see until they prove it. I just don't think this offense can pull away. I don't think this offense can put up big points, but I'm taking Steelers 24-20. I think Kyler Murray's going to run around, that little toddler run that you'd like to see. He's probably going to score a rushing touchdown like he did against the Rams last week. Connor returns back home. Maybe he'll get a touchdown. Not a lot from him so far, but he's missed a couple games this year, but you think Connor could get into the end zone. So I think 24-20 Steelers do come away, though, with the win.
Screw it. I'm going to stick to my word. Steelers are going to have a good offensive showing Sunday afternoon. They're going to defeat the Cardinals 27-17. 2-possession victory for the
Oh,
Steelers this week, heading into a short week against New England. I think this offense, from what they did against Cincinnati, I think they're going to be able to piece things together, like I mentioned earlier. And if they're able to piece things together, they're going to have success offensively, and that defense is going to hold the line on the other side of the ball and come out with a 2-possession victory.
I think that Nate's right in the sense Kyler Murray is going to give them fits for at least a portion of the game. It'll be like that old Joe Theismann commercial where he goes, "My prostate was giving me fits." But it's going to be Kyler Murray with the Steelers defense. He'll probably scamper in for a touchdown, and I'll probably break something in the house, and then I'll apologize and go to Walmart and pick up a replacement. But at the end of the day, I think the Steelers, I think they eclipse 20 points. I'm going 23-10. Pittsburgh Steelers. James Conner is going to get close to a touchdown. I personally would love to see him get one, but I think they give up that one touchdown to a Kyler Murray, and I think that's it. I think they nip this Cardinals offense in the butt, and Ryan Shazier probably got really excited at my use of the word butt there, but we'll move on now to the allegedly, we'll move on now to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who've struggled on the road. They're already losing to the Lightning as we record. Stamkos netted one already. Nate, we're not going to spend too much time on them. There's a lot of time for things to change, but overall, how have you just been assessing this stretch, that painful loss to the Sabres, the painful loss to the Predators in overtime, mere seconds? What do you make of where this team's at right now? And when do you finally, if you're the Penguins, sit back and say, yeah, maybe we need to make some broader changes?
Yeah, I mean, right now the Penguins are the epitome of mediocrity. I mean, 10-10-1 doesn't get as more mediocre than that, and that's just I think the team you're going to see this year. I mean, this team is going to end up like 35 and whatever and 12 with 82 games, but I don't know. I mean, we talk about the Pens are down 2-0 at the end of one right now in Tampa, and that's how it was in Nashville, and they were able to come back and tie the game and at least force overtime. So it's just the swing of emotions with this team is just really hard to handle. I mean, this team is very topsy-turvy. I mean, they, can score 3 goals on you in a period, but they can also give up 2 goals late. I mean, the Pens were up 2-0 in Buffalo, and they lost that game. Like, that just can't happen. In the third period, albeit. Like, those 3 goals came late in the game, third period, and you lose to a Buffalo team that you played pretty well against, a week or 2 prior. So this team is just, very inconsistent. And even with Crosby and Malkin still putting up pretty good numbers, Russ was back in the lineup in Nashville, scored for the Pens. But, I think there's been some very also interesting endings to games for the Pens. When we saw the West Coast swing, there was 2 games that saw goals waved off late after review, and then the Pens were able to still score right away. But how about in Nashville? That I don't know if you guys saw that little pick play that Ryan O'Reilly set, but it was weird because everyone was like, oh, probably was interference, but Erik Karlsson looked like he was grabbing the stick of Ryan O'Reilly and trying to pull him over the blue line. But either way, gave a free lane to Philip Forsberg to go in and score 14 seconds into overtime. So, I mean, things can change on a dime for this team and, for better or for worse. So, I mean, we've seen this team go on a long win streak, and we've seen this team lose a lot of games they should have not. So, this season, at this point, it's really undecided where they're going to head in right now. I mean, they're down 2-0 to Tampa as we're talking right now. They have a home and home with Philadelphia coming up. I mean, that's, huge matchup within the division. And it's, unfortunate that the Pens only play the Flyers 4 times this year. And they play them, their last game against them is February 25th, which it used to be the last 2 weeks of the season. They would see them twice in the last 2 weeks. So it's unfortunate that you don't see your division rivals as much anymore. But big stretch here for the Pens. They have Tampa. They have 2 against the Flyers, and then they see Tampa again. So we'll see if the Pens can turn things around. Their power play has been pretty abysmal. They're the 5th worst power play in the league, only scoring at a 12% clip. So there's a lot to be worked on. I think the power play units need to be shuffled around a little bit more. Saw a little bit of a breakdown of a video that has they have Malkin sometimes roaming the left side of the power play, which should be a right-handed shot, one-timer shot. So either move Carlson over there or get Letang into the power play so you at least have a threat from that side to pass over and open up some lanes. But there's definitely going to be some changes, I think, in the next coming weeks. We've seen a lot of guys coming in and out of the lineup because of injuries, but I don't know. There may be a trade on the horizon. The news of Patrick Hornquist is going to be celebrated whenever the Pens visit Florida later this season. Makes you think the Pens need a guy that needs to be physical in front of the net. I think I brought this up episodes earlier in the season when the Pens are getting a lot of shots. They just can't score. They need a physical presence in front of the net. And I think that's what they're missing right now.
Yeah, I think the blown late leads is a trend from last year that you kind of hoped they would be able to rectify this year, and it just really hasn't happened. Feels like a lot of their losses come after multi-goal leads kind of get squandered. But Nate, I've seen something from the super genius himself kind of saying no one's off limits, or no one should be off limits when it comes to making a move. Not to put you completely on the spot, but do you have a list of untouchables / guys that you wouldn't mind seeing get moved? And when you say untouchables, I know Crosby's probably on there, Carlson's on there, and all the big names most likely. But do you have anyone else who you don't want to see them move at all?
I think you nailed it right on the head with the two guys they should keep, or at least should be untouchable. Sid, and then obviously bringing in Carlson. I mean, you don't want to move on from him too early. I mean, he's played pretty good after a little bit of an early slump, but I think anybody is on the auction block right now for the Pens. Even someone like Gensel and Rust. I mean, I don't think they'll move on from Gensel because he's still, a pretty potent scorer for the Pens, but Rust could be a good trade piece, and you could get some good players in return. I mean, you hate to see Malkin get traded, but back in my high school days when I wrote for the high school paper, I had talked about the Pens trading him, and I mean, that might come now. I mean, but the thing is, you're not going to get as good of a return as you could have in the past. But no, I mean, pretty much anybody's, I think, on the block right now for the Pens.
Absolutely. Get worried with Jake Gensel's name being thrown around out there. Like you said, he's very reliable. And of course, the Jake Shake promotion, which every hockey nerd who's watching this right now just said, I can't believe you just said that. But no, I love Gensel. I'd hate to see him leave, but at some point, I think the return on him could be really good. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But you don't have to wait to go to Pure Hockey, the official sponsor of Penguin Talk, every single week here on Stranded in Pittsburgh. Whether you need gear, whether you need protective equipment, NHL apparel, or whatever hockey paraphernalia your little mind can come up with, Pure Hockey's got it. Use the code in our description, and you'll get some good hockey gear as well. The words that I was going to say escape my mind, just like the good deals at Pure Hockey won't be able to escape your mind. And we now move on to Pittsburgh's golden child, the Pittsburgh Pirates. As their division continues to sign pitchers, their rotation with the Tommy John surgery for Mr. Oviedo is now down to, on paper, potentially Mitch Keller. Potentially, just potentially. And I know you see the little bottom third there. We'll talk about that in a second. But Ethan, you have covered this squad. You have ears to the ground with those nice headphones on. You take them off sometimes. You put your ears on the ground. What do you think is going to happen realistically with what they're going to do with this pitching rotation?
It's still early, and I don't think it's time to hit the panic button just yet. There's still a ton of time, especially before the winter meetings, especially before the Roll 5 draft. But it's coming up. The winter meetings, I think, are in about a week or two away. So it's time to start to get the wheels turning. Last year, by this time, by Black Friday last year, they had Carlos Santana signed to a deal, signed to a contract. We haven't seen anything. And while the Cardinals are making moves for Sonny Gray and getting veteran pitching options, the Cubs getting Craig Counsell as their manager, there hasn't not been anything from this Pirates team so far. So is it time to hit the panic button? No, but at this point, especially by the end of this week, by Saturday, you would hope that this Pirates team would make a move. clearly they've got Mitch Keller and JT Brubaker that's coming off of surgery this past season. That's not going to cut it in this NL Central division, let alone for this team to try to make a push with all of these young guys that they have on this roster. This team's nowhere near where they need to be at right now, and they just need to make some moves moving forward that will help them set themselves up in a better position than where they are at the end of the year this past year.
Yeah, I think, even talking to Michael McHenry, where he put us on the spot and said, who do you want to see them sign? I think it's one of those deals where infield wise, they're in a very good shape. Maybe get a veteran first baseman, even if they do half the workload and DH once in a while, which depending on what they do with Kutch, if they re-sign him, then who knows what they'll end up doing at DH. But you need a couple more veteran guys, reliable hands, whether it be in the bullpen or in the field, I think, to kind of help these young guys along. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do because the division's already kind of got a jump start on them. And so it's going to be something to watch to see how they respond to the rest of their division, kind of making moves already. Speaking of moving, Pirates are moving their evening home games to 6:40 from 7:05. This caused a little bit of a ruckus on social media, that extra, 25 minutes you lose before these games now. I kind of get why they do it, maybe for the part that overlaps with the school year. Maybe you're like, oh, the kids can stay up and watch it now. Just kidding. That's a desperation thought there. But just people getting off at work 5:30, 6 o'clock, what have you, seems weird. Pittsburgh's a horrible town to drive in to begin with. So giving people less time to get there from a normal stereotypical 9 to 5 sounds kind of weird in my book. But do either of you have any strong opinions on this decision here?
They're not changing much. They've flirted with the 6:35 start time through the beginning of the year to Memorial Day, and then after Labor Day until the end of the season. There's not much changing. It's just moving up 5 minutes, and then obviously the 7:05 games during the summer time. Yeah, does that change a little bit? And then you got the Saturday afternoon games all starting at 4:05 now, instead of having that 7:05 game and 4:05 during the summer. I don't mind that. You're trying to get more people into the ballpark because usually, yeah, you have fireworks night on a Saturday night and then a 4:05. You're getting the bulk of your attendance, especially for the Pirates. And everyone likes to trounce on the Pirates' attendance, but they're, as much as I hate to say this, they're doing what's best for their attendance. They've gotten a large majority of the crowd, especially on the weekends, for those 4:05 games, and to move it there, and even for those weeknight 6:40 games, you're getting a large majority of your attendance there. So I don't mind the move. Yeah, do I like the 7:05 games? Yes, but as someone that's been there and that's sat through a lot of these games over the past several years, I'm happy getting out of there a half hour to an hour earlier every night.
All right. With that in mind, we'll move on to last call, our final thoughts on the evening about anything. And Nate, you can go first because I know Ethan probably needs to take a swig of a fine beverage after that.
Well, I'll start with talking about the NCAA transfer portal. How about that opening up on Monday? It's going to be, I mean, it already is hectic as ever, as it always has been the last 2 years, especially with you can transfer and be eligible pretty much immediately. But it's going to be a bloodbath for who gets who. And I know there's some names already committing to places like Max Johnson going from Texas A&M to North Carolina. But it's going to be crazier than ever, I think, this year. The money pool's even bigger. People know that players are already being contacted before and during the season to join other teams. Just watched a clip of Gavin Bartholomew with your pal Noah Hiles talking about how he's already gotten talked to. Like, not him specifically, but his agent, hearing from the NIL collective. So we'll see. But specifically here in Pittsburgh, what Pitt can do, they've already lost a crop of defensive players, plus to the players who are already leaving for the NFL draft that declared this past week. And it's interesting because that was a group that played decently this year, and you thought there would be a high turnover in offense, just the way things went. The offense coordinator position, with Signetti being fired. But no, this is, already 60 quarterbacks in the portal between the FBS and FCS. Be interesting if Pitt tries to target any of those. I don't think they should. I think they have 4 scholarship quarterbacks next year that could compete for the starting job. Obviously, Yarnell and Veyer are the 2 at the top. But no, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. A lot of players going to be on the move once again.
Absolutely. Nate will do a special Nate's Notebook video. This is a little throwback to college on the Pitt football season. Keep an eye out for that. Ethan, very quickly, Gary's calling. What do you have to say for your final thought?
Literally, Gary is calling. I've had this image ingrained on my other screen for the past 40 minutes. It's the battle between Leslie and Teresa. It's a battle between those 2 tonight on ABC. Right as we're about to get off recording this, it has to be Teresa. They have history. They have similar histories. It's the perfect match. Come on, just say it, Gary. Just announce it, Gary. It's you two. You've had this connection since week 2 of the episode when she was crying about her past, and you two connected on it. It has to be them. Gary, Teresa, Golden Bachelor, best spinoff of The Bachelor ever.
Wow, that's intense. I was going to say RMU back as an associate member of NEC football. Me and my good pal Alan Saunders, who said, you realize it wasn't their choice that they left. And I digress. I said, yes, I understand that, but I wish they could have worked something out, because them playing football in Georgia and North Carolina in the Deep South and conference games never made any sense. But much like Gary and Teresa, this just kind of feels right. This has been Stranded in Pittsburgh. That's Ethan. That's Nate. I'm Nick. We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.